Welcome to the first panel in Circus and its Others digital panel series. I'm Ante Urisic, a PhD candidate in performance studies here at University of California, Davis, and today's facilitator. Please bear with me and my German accent as I introduce the event and the speakers. Circus and its Others is an international cross-disciplinary research project that explores the way in which contemporary circus artists and companies relate to the concepts such as difference, otherness, and alterity in their practice. To date, we have organized 2 international conferences and published a themed double issue of the peer-reviewed journal Performance Matters. We had been planning a third and largest conference to take place here at the University of California, Davis for this month, November 2020, but the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted those plans as it has disrupted events around the world. This conference is now rescheduled for November 2021, still here at the University of California, Davis. We did not want to wait, however, until late 2021 to continue our work with the Circus and its Others project. We are therefore offering a series of smaller digital events spanning from fall 2020 to the summer of 2021. I am thrilled and honored to be the curator and facilitator of this first Circus and its Others digital event, Color in Centering, Cultivating Inclusivity and Circus. This panel includes 5 circus artists and will be moderated by UC Davis professor Moradei Adejunmobi. Before introducing our amazing participants, however, I would like to take a moment and acknowledge that this virtual panel is taking place throughout the unceded territory of the Americas. For thousands of years, the land on which UC Davis resides has been the home of Patwin people. Today, there are 3 federally recognized Patwin tribes: Kachil Dehe Band of Wintune Indians of the Colusa Indian community, Tletzel Dehe Wintune Nation, and Yocha Dehe Wintune Nation. The Patwin people have remained committed to the stewardship of this land over many centuries. It has been cherished and protected as elders have instructed the young through generations. We are honored and grateful to be here today, both actually and virtually, on their traditional lands. I would also like to take a moment and thank UC Davis Global Affairs, UC Davis Department of Theater and Dance, UC Davis Performance Studies Graduate Group, and Brook University's Match of Minds program for supporting this event. And now, the fabulous speakers that so kindly agreed to be part of the conversation. Veronica Blair is a professional aerialist with over 15 years of performing and teaching experience. Expanding her portfolio beyond performing, Veronica launched the development of the Ankle Junior project in 2010. The ongoing documentary shines a light on the careers of African-American circus performers. Haley Landry is a Torontarian of Jamaican and Acadian descent. She joined Look Up Theater's mental health social circus troupe in 2012. Since then, her role has expanded from participant to performer and instructor. Circus as an art form has consistently been integral to Haley's understanding of storytelling and empowerment. Nataio Mildenberger grew up in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. He graduated from the Ballet School of Canada and Circus School Surfy, Switzerland. Throughout his career, he has worked with several dance and circus companies. More recently, his passion grew towards the hair industry, and he currently works as a professional certified loctician. Marco Mota was born in Salvador de Bahia. In Brazil, he began to prepare and train as a dancer and contortionist. It has become his true language and his way of expressing himself. For 10 years, he has used the language of breakdance as his main means of artistic articulation. Larby Williams is a proud Black woman and has lived in Kingston, Ontario for a total of 6 years. First as a student and now as a human rights practitioner with a focus on anti-racism. Larby is also a novice aerialist and part of the performance team at Kingston Circus Arts. Her long limbs, Afro hair, and Black identity are all part of the space she occupies in the aerial world. Morade One Edejunmobi is a scholar of African literature and African popular culture here at UC Davis. She has published widely. Most recently, she co-edited the Routledge Handbook of African Literature with Kali Kurtzi. We are honored to have her moderating the event. Thank you for your patience. And without further ado, I pass over to Morade One.
Thank you very much, Ante. And let me join Ante in welcoming all the panelists from around the world and from different locations. We're truly honored to have you participating in this panel today. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a series of questions that I'm going to ask, and then we will allow the audience to participate in Q&A and to ask questions as well. The first question I'm going to ask is going to allow you to elaborate on Ante's introduction. And I'm going to ask each person, how did you come to Circus? And what has been your experience with Circus? How did you come to Circus? And what is your experience with Circus? And I'm going to go through the screen and call on you one by one in the order in which you appear on my screen. And I'm going to ask you to spend not more than 5 minutes or less, if you can, just a very brief response. You know, how did you come to Circus and what has been your experience in Circus? And I'm going to start, I think, with Lavi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the beautiful introductions and, of course, the land acknowledgement. I think that the land acknowledgements really ground us in the conversations, particularly around anti-racism and anti-oppression, particularly across the Americas. So again, thanks for that. As has been mentioned, I've been doing Aerial for about 5-ish years. And I started doing Aerial when I was undertaking my postgraduate work at the University of Sussex in the UK. And I thought that it would be a really nice way to talk about and do something other than anti-racism, since it tends to take up the majority of my life. And so moving back to Canada, once I finished my degree, it was really important for me to find a studio where I could continue learning and engaging my body and my mind in different ways. Since this year, however, it's very interesting because there's been a lot of conversation, a lot more conversation, widespread conversation around anti-racism and anti-oppression more broadly. And so I've seen this move into the space of Circus and the context of Circus. So now I'm doing a lot of work. I guess my anti-racism work has bled into Circus work. But what drew me to Circus initially was this idea or this feeling that even though I think there was no one who really looked like me per se, I felt that it was a place where I could kind of shed external expectations around what it means to be Black or what sort of space that you occupy. And because everyone's physicality is different and you learn different and you learn at different rates, I felt that it was really catered towards what I was able to do and where I wanted to go. And so for me, I've always said that if my career in anti-racism, Black liberation work fizzles out or doesn't take off or become something, I can always run away with the Circus. And you know, I feel in a strange way, I feel at home participating in Circus, in the Circus world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Very interesting. That already raises all kinds of questions for me, but I will keep them to myself. And on my screen, Nataio is left. How did you come to Circus and what has been your experience in Circus?
So my experience, when I was, I'm gonna say 6 or 7, we took a family trip to Disneyland in Florida, and we went to see Cirque du Soleil's La Nuba, which is a no longer existing show. And basically that show, it sparked so much in me. And even though I was so young, I remember leaving the theater and I literally told my parents, I need to be on that stage. I need to be performing. This is meant for me. And of course, you know, parents, they're like, okay, yeah, sure, like, okay. But I proved it to them how serious and devoted I just really wanted it. So, and they supported me because I proved it. So it led me to graduating from a professional ballet school. I graduated from a professional circus college out in Switzerland. And I was just so, I wanted, I just wanted it so bad. And I feel I did all the things, but there was always boundaries. Um, and it never got me to where I felt that I actually deserved to be, unfortunately. um, so up until, let's say, last year, I was totally in the game, sending out my work, applying, submitting, and um, there was a situation that came up that I'll probably get into a little more further into this talk. And this situation led me to having to just step back and say, you know what? I've done this for so long. I've been fighting. No one has been personally taking me serious as a colored artist. I just feel it's time to move on because it just, you know, I proved myself. I was never seen, and I'm not happy. And I loved the arts. I loved it so much. And, you know, for myself, for my mental health, for my happiness, I just had to step away from it. So just to touch base.
Thank you very much, Nataio. I'm sure that others will want to know more about your experience. Just a reminder, something that Ante has put in the chat, that the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen is open for all members of the audience to type in their questions. So you can already start typing in your questions. If there's something that the panelists say in responding to my initial questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A and we will get to it later on in our conversation today. Up next for me is, on my screen is Marco, and Marco is going to respond to those same questions. You know, how did you come to Circus and what has been your experience in Circus?
Hi. So I'm starting Circus 6 years ago, more or less, I think, because I'm start working in a theater here in Spain, in Madrid. In this show, I just dancer, and I do a kind of dance contortion flow act, and I'm start to train straps with my friend in the same theater, and he teach me a lot about how the straps working, how to grab the straps, and all these kind of basic things. And over there, I'm start to feel a bit uncomfortable with the how's it called is the with the circus aesthetic, because it's not from my body, or I feel like that because I feel in completely other world because I'm training for almost 7 years in that moment, or more, breakdance. And my body, I train my body for a lot of years to do something, and when I'm starting circles, the people start to say me, no, that's not the way, you're wrong, your feet or your legs or whatever, you know what I mean. And there's when I'm start thinking how I can create my own style, you know. And in the circles, I'm real lucky because I think I do a lot of workings in circus world. Not a lot, but you know, I'm travel a lot. I go to Australia, South America, Europe, or Europe. I know I'm travel to a lot of countries, but I feel like I'm always do the same character. the Black Aboriginal exotic from the other part of from, you know what I mean? Like this kind of circus idea from the 18th centuries is like, yeah, it's a bit, yeah, is my deception in the circus world, because when I'm start look contemporary circus, and one question, I'm repeat one question in my mind, like which kind of contemporary world these people live, because not my world, definitely not. That's when I'm create my acting, the strength fruit, with the music from Billie Holiday, to speak about my contemporary world. You know what I mean? Because I have this conflict in my mind. I do contemporary circus, but I don't speak my, you know what I mean, of my life and the life from my people. So that's big thing. And now I'm already create a whole show from I'm direct, and I created all my show, because I really like to put people of color on the stage without this idea of exotic. I would like to use in my body language with in the natural way. I would like to listen jazz on stage and play my trumpet in my, you know what I mean? I really need to do that. And that's my new project to the next year, if the coronavirus don't help much, but I have the hope now too. And I'm still creative. And yeah, that's my experience in the circus world. And that's what I do right now.
Thank you very much, Marco. It's already, the responses I'm getting are already leading towards the next set of questions, but I'll hold on to them for a while, but thank you so much. Haley, you're next.
Wow. I'm blown away by these intros. It's so good to be in this circle with you guys. You all sound like really incredible human beings. Yeah, Marco, you did great. I'm nervous and I speak English pretty well, so I'm gonna go back and forth from my notes here. So yeah, my name's Haley. I'm a performer and instructor with Look Up Theater. It's been about 8 years now, just over 8 years. And the mission statement in Look Up Theater is, part of the mission statement is to tell true stories through contemporary circus. And that's been such a meaningful part of the past 8 years of my life. It's hard to fit into just a few minutes, but I was a young person looking for community when I found this group. And I became a part of this mental health circus troupe that Look Up Theater runs. Angela Murdoch is the Look Up Theater's artistic director, and she works tirelessly to get us funding through Ontario Arts Council, Toronto Arts Council, Cirque du Monde, and the Echo Foundation. So thanks to all that work and that funding, we get to gather once a week to empower ourselves through telling our stories about our mental health experiences, using circus as a tool. And we get to share this anti-stigma message about mental health experiences while experiencing dealing with our own conditioning and our own stigma, our internal stigma towards our own mental health issues, which has been a part of my journey for sure. We've shared this story with over 20,000 people in Toronto across the GTA, so that's been really meaningful. And we get to put on a show through creation. I'm really passionate about aerial, but I've also gotten to develop skills in stilt walking and juggling and acro, and all kind of seeing that through a lens of mental health and supporting each other through that creation and skill building phase, and then putting on a show for our friends and family and community every year. So that's been unbelievably cathartic on many levels every year, pushing ourselves to tell stories and go to deeper and darker and more vulnerable places inside of ourselves. So that's been a tool to boost my confidence through community and getting exercise, through depression and anxiety from a long time in my life. So I'm really grateful for that. This group was never, I'll say marketed, but marketed is not the right word. It was never marketed as a BIPOC-centered group, but we do happen to be remarkably diverse, even by Toronto standards, as the most multicultural city in the world. We're very diverse, meaning more than half not white, which is not what we set out to do. I say we, but I was not part of the creation of this group, but it was never what we set out to do. And I can't speak for the cause and effect in the bigger picture, but the reason I've been able to remain a committed member of this group over the years and a dedicated member is the fact that it's free. It's not because I'm Black and that's like one of the boxes we ticked on a grant application. It's because it's free, and I'm not, you know, I'm like maybe upper middle class. I don't know where I fit, but I wouldn't be able to pay for circus training for this long, that's for sure. So I'm very grateful that Angola has done all this work and all the funding that we've gotten for the social circus community in Toronto to continue getting funding, and for, you know, I'm living proof that it brings so much light, not only to the participants, but to the community. You know, I've gotten to do circus work outside of the group, which has been amazing. And yeah, being a part of the aerial and the circus community in Toronto has helped my mental health, and being a part of this community has helped me have the vocabulary to talk about mental health and not be ashamed of it. And that's, you know, in the BIPOC community with so much inherited or generational ancestral trauma, being able to talk about mental health and having that vocabulary is so meaningful. Yeah, so I'm really grateful for that. I'm hoping that as I deal with my own financial issues, I have the space in my life to keep committing to circus, and it's my favorite mental health treatment is circus. I'll say that for sure. And yeah, I've gotten to do circus in other countries even. It's been such a beautiful journey, and I think, yeah, it's meaningful to this conversation that it wasn't what we set out to do, to include people of different skin colors. That was never part of the plan, and it just happened organically, and that is great. So yeah, thank you for including me in this conversation.
Thank you very much, Haley. I'm going to go to our last panelist, and I'll mention that we already have one question in the Q&A. And just a shout out to the members of the audience. Please begin to enter your questions into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen for the time when we go to questions from the audience. So over to you now, Veronica. How did you come to circus, and what has been your experience in circus?
All right, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Panelists, you're awesome. I'm so honored to be here with you guys to have this conversation. Hi, guys. My name is Veronica. So I discovered circus. I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
You're good. Please continue.
Okay. Yes, so I came to discover circus just here in San Francisco. San Francisco has a long tradition of circus and performing arts in our public spaces, in our public parks. So that goes from the San Francisco Mime Troupe to Pickle Family Circus, which was an animal-free kind of Cirque Nouveau modern circus type of show. And from Pickle Family Circus, there was Make a Circus. Now, as a youngster, growing up in San Francisco, I would go to the parks in the summer with my family, my brothers and sisters, and we would participate and we would watch Make a Circus, which was basically a company that had a whole outdoor setup with a full jazz band and everything. They would have one professional show with all of the performers, and they would present like contemporary kind of circus. And when I say contemporary in this sense, they would do takes on like fairy tales, or they would create their own original plays. And they had dance and everything with live music. And then after the first show, they would have a workshop, and all of the neighborhood all of the neighborhood kids, excuse me, that came to watch the show, they were welcome and invited to join these workshops. And so after participating in that workshop, you then could be in a third show, like a second show that Make a Circus put on that day. So it was it was a long day. Like you were in the park for about 4 hours because you watched one show, you participated in a workshop, and then there was the second show where the adults would then lead the kids onto stage, and you would do like your 3 scarf juggling pass, or if you were in the tumbling workshop, you would do a tumbling pass and do your little ta-da, and then go sit back down and then watch the second show. So it was an immersive experience. And I remember going to the parks during in the summer and participating in Make a Circus. I always had an inkling, I always had a feeling that I wanted to be a performing artist. At first, it was what to me was the obvious. It was a singer or a dancer or an actress, but it was a chance discovery of the Make a Circus Teen Apprentice program when I was 14 that led me to audition for it. And after my audition, I was invited to join this program. So in the Make a Circus Teen Apprentice program, I would go to the San Francisco School of Circus Arts, and I would take classes 3 days a week. And in those classes, we learned clowning, we learned stilt walking, we learned juggling, we learned partner acrobatics, simple tumbling passes. And this took place in one room at the San Francisco School of Circus Arts. And on the other side of the building, there was a gymnasium, and the classes in that gymnasium, they had flying trapeze and static trapeze, all kinds of classes. But the main class was led by Master Lu Yi, who was an instructor that the Pickles kind of imported from China to train the troupe in the 70s, I believe. And so he had the San Francisco Youth Circus troupe. And so even though I was in the Make a Circus Teen Apprentice program, I was always able to go and sneak a peek at the Youth Circus troupe and see Master Lu Yi train these amazing kids. And so I had something to kind of aspire to and something to look up to and look forward to in terms of like training. And I decided early on that I was going to be a Chinese acrobat and that I was going to train with Lu Yi. And I did do that for a while, but I ended up sticking with Make a Circus after Make a Circus getting cast in Universe Soul Circus, which is America's only African-American owned and operated circus at this time. They should be about 28 years old at this point, almost 30 years old. And so I was blessed to right after high school, after Make a Circus, transition into Universe Soul Circus. And from there, I've been performing nationally and internationally for the past 17, 18 years. So that's how I discovered circus. My experience with circus has just been, I don't want to talk too much because we still do have a whole discussion to have, but it has been varied. I started off in social circus. I started off in a social circus program. And then I went into a professional traditional circus program. I've trained in Sarasota, Florida, and throughout me working with Universal Circus, I trained in at Connect, and the school in Chalon and Champagne, the national school in France, and I got to train in a contemporary, like a really strongly contemporary circus space in France, and I got to go to train in South Africa. So my experiences have been varied. In the sense that I have done contemporary circus, social circus, traditional circus, which I love, and grassroots circus, all different types of circus, and I love them all. I just want to say I love them all. So I'll share my experiences for when the questions come up later. But yeah.
Thank you very much. It's interesting to see that our panelists have trained all over the world. They've come from all over the world. They're located in different places in the world, and they have performed around the world. So they really do bring a kind of global perspective in terms of being in different places at different points in time and having trained in different places. I want to ask a follow-up question that speaks more directly to the title of our panel. And you know, some of you in your response to the first question I asked already gesturing at that, but let me go directly to the point. What does it mean to be a Black body in circus? How does the Black body factor into what you've done and what you hope to do? Has the Black body been a barrier in some instances? That's my next question for us to reflect on. And I'm going to start again with Lavi, and we're going to go all around before we start taking questions. And again, to the audience, please start putting your questions into the Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I think in comparison to most on the call on the panel, I don't do aerial or circus professionally. And so for me, I've made a commitment to myself in terms of counteracting the dominant narrative, the dominant culture that we live in North America, which is centered around whiteness, to occupy space and to bring my full self to it. And so my Blackness, as far as or being a Black body or embodying that Blackness, hasn't necessarily been a barrier for me, because I think that's my intention when I show up. And so fortunately, I've found that the performances or the things that I opt into, really, I use it to play on that, and to really say I'm here. And, you know, if there are people who don't like that, then that's really their issue, not mine. But I think it also has meant that opting out of certain things. And so there was, I can't really remember the specifics, but I know that the circus school that I'm part of, there's an annual kind of show that they put on, where they encourage people in the mall, in the shopping center, to kind of just go and like view people. So you'd hold a pose for like 5 minutes and then change the pose. And I was like, I don't think I would like that, given where I live in Kingston, Ontario. There aren't very many Black people, and you know, people stare when I'm just going about my normal business. And so to imagine someone coming really close up to me and like having such access to me really turned me off, and I wouldn't put myself in that sort of position. But in places where I feel that I can own the space, I can set up like my boundaries and have those respected. I very much enjoy being as Black as possible.
Thank you very much for that. Nataio, what does it mean for you to be a Black body in the center ring? You're muted. You need to unmute yourself.
There we go. We're good. Sorry. So I'm going to dig a little deeper into my experiences. So when I was at École de Cirque Sophie in Switzerland, I specialized in Chinese pole. And from the minute on my first training day, first day at the school, when I discovered Chinese pole, I was like, this is it, man. Like this specialty, it just gave me so much fire. And during my second year, I was looking for different schools that were known to have great teachers to specialize and get more technique with Chinese pole. So I remember École de Cirque de Montréal was actually doing their first ever auditions in Paris. And I was still in Switzerland at the time, so I hopped on the train, and the auditions were at Cirque Phoenix, where Cirque de Demain is held. And I just remember it was super cold. They had those thin mats for us to tumble on, and it was just, it was messy. But you know, I heard so much about the school, and I was like, you know what, I feel this could be something, there could be something there for me. So I remember I auditioned and they told me, and I have a couple of these notes here, they told me I don't have the physicality to be successful in Chinese pole. I also ended up going to check out École de Cirque Châteauroux, also in France. I auditioned there, and there they told me, "You're great, but you don't really fit in here." I went to National Arts de Cirque, Chalon and Champlain, auditioned for them, and these are all like post-secondary professional programs. And again, these schools are known for, like, if you want to specialize in the circus art, these were schools that were known, this is where you can go, you know? So at Chalon Champlain, did the audition, and they told me, you will never have a career with Chinese pole. So here I am trying to get into these schools to further my knowledge, but everyone's just saying no. And it was continuous. It never ended. And recently, during the Black Lives Movement matter coming up, I ended up just doing some research, and I went on to École de Cirque de Montréal site and just wanted to see, you know, are there any Black graduates, or, you know, because, like, guys, we're here, we're everywhere, and we can do it, you know? And this is actually something interesting. So on their site, they post like their graduate years, and this is from 2017. So, and I just made a little note of the years that they had Black graduates. So from 2007, 0, 2008, 0, 2009, 0, 2010, 0, 2011, 0, again, no Black graduates. 2012, there was 1. 2013, 1. 2014, 2. 2015, 0. 2016, 0. We go to 2017, there was 2. We're going to 2018, 0. 2009 or 2019, 0. 2020, this is today, there's 1. So, and this is all on the site, you know, so what is this really saying? You know what I mean? Like, and this is where, like, I'm getting exhausted. I got exhausted trying to prove myself again and again. Like, I'm sorry, I can do the same work the white people are doing, you know? And it gets so frustrating. And that's comes back to the reason why I had to step out, just for myself, to be happy and to move on. Because, like, when you constantly keep hearing no, and there's always that reason, and you start putting it together, it's like, it does come down to the color. It really does, because I demonstrate, I send all the same, obviously not the same style, but the same tricks, the same things that they want to see for requirements. And it's like, why not?
Thank you very much for that personal testimony, Nataio. Really kind of opens a window into what's happening out there in the world. Let me say before I go into the others that for the members of the audience who've submitted questions, I see your questions, and we're going to be coming to the questions very shortly. So Marco, what do you feel about the Black body in circus, and how the Black body factors or does not factor in? Yeah.
Yeah. So the big thing for me in this industry is the people like us always, not every time, but yeah, but don't like to hear us. That's the big problem. Like this panel, for example, I don't know. But I really think when we are on the stage, the people don't like to hear about us problems or about what really happens around the world. And the people just like to see exotic body on the stage doing some kind of tribal things or whatever, and do impressive things. That's cool, but it's like that's we working, but it's like not much more. When you start to speak about what happened in industry, I definitely know that, because when I'm starting this, I literally start to say, "What's your problem?" To the directors and I don't know, yeah, more. I have a lot of discussion with directors, like why I need to put this costume with huge feathers and dance samba. I have a lot of things to speak. I have a lot of things to say. Um, Obviously, I'm a happy guy and I love my culture. I'm half indigenous, half black. I'm I put feathers in my hair because I can, but no, not in this way. You know what I mean? And that's yeah, that's for me is how to be black on the center of the ring. Like, it's hard because the problem is not coming from us. It's come from the eyes to judge us. You know what I mean? It's come from uh, to the people in the power. Because, for example, I have a really good feedback from the public when I do my actings in general or when I do my own style. But I have a lot of problems in castings and with the directors, because I always say the same for me. Maybe you can change the music, because I don't know if Strange Fruit is a hard music to put in the show. I understand. Always, definitely, if you do entertainment, it's complicated, but I don't know. I try to think all the kind of art is possible, because we need to reflect the world we live, and that's for me is the big problem. Always is the same stereotype, and always the directors and managers and whatever try to cover us mouth, like don't speak much, just do your work, or directly just don't contract black people, because that less problems. Because if you have someone, like I have experience a months ago in one working, if you have someone racist in the working with you, obviously I say to my boss, yo, this guy is completely racist and he says stupid things that way. It like this kind of jokes. Oh, you climb really well because you come from the jungle, huh? And this kind of things. Yeah, you have more problems because I'm speak like, no, I don't like to work with this kind of people. But I really think Circus is a huge how I say wimble to create how I can say empathy to the people, because when you are like in this kind of highs, I don't know, 7 metros or 10 metros, and the people is like spectated, and the people put uh they have the empathy, because if you fail, the people like you just a spectator of that. Or when you do a show, the contortion, for example, the people's like, the people feel your pain. You know what I mean? I think it's a real good to create this kind of empathy if we speak about we problems. If we just doing happy things and whatever, I don't think it changes much. If you're using circus like art, just entertainment is okay.
Thank you, Marco, for that. I'm going to go to Haley. and at the end, we'll go to Veronica, and then we'll go to our questions. We have quite a few questions already. So first of all, Haley, so something about the Black body. What does it mean to be the Black body?
Yeah, I won't say much actually. I guess one way to say it is like the experiences that Nataio and Marco are sharing with us. I haven't had a lot of them, and I think even just this, like if it was darker, maybe I would have more adverse experience in the community. I don't know, but I have a lot to be grateful for. Living in Toronto, the social circus community, like I said, is so diverse just organically. It just happens that way in our community, which I'm so grateful for. And it feels like a family, you know. I think it's beautiful what you said, Marco, about inspiring empathy in our audiences. And it's sad to think that, yeah, when you hire white people, you have less problems or less conflict, but that's maybe conflict avoidance, which is a big part of my mental health journey. I don't know about anyone else, but conflict avoidance is exactly part of the problem. Like when we embrace the conflict, we expose the racism, and we start conversations like this one, which are so important. So I personally have a lot to be grateful for, and I think I should give more time to people that have had those experiences personally.
Thank you very much, Haley. And finally, on this question, Veronica.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the Black body in a performance arts space, in the circus space. There's a lot of various experiences, and you're going to hear them on this panel. And I have to say that throughout my circus career, my skin color, my Black body has been used for so many different things. It has been used for promotion, and it has been used for fundraising. It's been used to show that the company has diversity. And I'm going to even go back to the beginning, because remember, I started in a social circus, and in the Make a Circus Teen Apprentice program, my Black body was used to generate interest from the news, from the media, in terms of articles in the newspaper saying that Veronica is a part of the Teen Apprentice program, which is a program that gets at-risk youth off of the street. On the news media, they'd have footage of me or another woman that was in the another young woman that was in the program looking up or looking on to our white colleagues as that's something that we aspire to be, or we aspire to be them. So there was a lot of stories and things created around this narrative, and I'm going to use the word narrative a lot, that highlighted and that put me and my other Black colleague in the forefront in terms of being at risk, or this program needs money because look at these shining examples of at-risk youth that we've brought up to this level, when that was very, very far from the truth. Working in Universal Circus, that was never the issue, and it was a bit of a homecoming, because I was one of the only African Americans in the company, in the whole production. I think there was only maybe 3 of us, and the rest of the cast were from Gabon, from Senegal, from Kenya, from South Africa, from Martinique, from Colombia, from Brazil, from all over the world. So it was the first time I really had a sense of myself in the African diaspora. But even still, I noticed that it was a thing of, oh, you're with that Black circus. Oh, okay, you're with the Black circus. So from the larger circus community, I was easily dismissed because my place was in the Black circus. After that, I noticed that the casting was for Africa, which was a huge show in Germany in the early 2000s. They wanted to keep recreating the same show about, and Africa took different art, like different bits of African culture from different countries in Africa, and they put them in the stage, and it was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful show. And I actually kind of didn't fit in because I was African American. So after the show, I just had to keep my mouth closed. So like, I didn't want to ruin the image for everyone. But there was that, and then I worked in Japan as a lion in a show about animals and God, and come to find out that I was cast because they wanted people of color to play, or darker people to play the lions and leopards. They had to be dark. I also done shows where the casting was specific for a Black body, a Black female. But I noticed at that point in around 2007, 2008, that a lot of my casting, a lot of the shows, the opportunities that I was getting was because of my skin color. And on these shows, I wasn't ever hired to come in and do my act. I was never really, except for besides Africa, it was always a casting for a Black body that was capable of doing aerial. And so I would get into these spaces, and then I'd have to train to do whatever they wanted me to do so that I could fulfill a role. And so that kind of goes back into what Marco said about, like, they want to see us, they want us in the spaces to a certain extent, but but they don't want to hear us. So at that point, I realized that that's what was happening in my career. And then I started to that started the kind of breakdown of like the performer or the athlete that I was all the time, that time, and my need to become more of an artist and to exhibit and to say more of what I wanted to say, be more authentic on stage. Yeah, and so I'm gonna try to keep it short because I know we have more questions and stuff coming up, but my experience as a Black body is very specific. And in terms of the larger companies, it was always something to the effect of, oh, well, maybe you need to work on your feet a little bit more, or something like that, in an audition where I'm one of the only people that out of 20 that is proficient on their equipment. And watching other people that are not people of color pass the audition that can barely do a pull-up or can barely climb their equipment or have no real, they like to throw this word around, technique on their apparatus, but maybe they have the European aesthetic, they have the ballet lines, or they have a certain height or quality about them that is more what the company looks for. But then they can come to me they can turn to me and say something like, oh, well, you just really need to work on your feet, and then kind of dismiss me in an audition. So it's a lot of different kinds of experience in this skin, in this body. And I'm reluctant to say body sometimes because I do see people that are not people of color that have a little bit more hips, or they might be a little bit soft, but they still get in those spaces. But definitely, I think my skin color has played a big role in my career. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Veronica. I could see Nataio nodding along and saying yes. I'm going to go to the Q&A, even though I have tons of other questions, but the audience is there with us. And what I'll do is I will read 4 questions first and allow members of the panel, the panelists, to respond to those questions, because we have altogether like 9 questions right now already. So I'll read a batch of 4 questions and we'll have responses, and then I'll read the other batch of 4 questions and we'll go that way. So let me go to the first 4 questions, and I won't necessarily read everything that people are saying. So somebody's asking, how do you use your art form to bring attention to your anti-racist mission? And I think that's for Lavi in particular. How do you use your art form to bring attention to your anti-racist mission? Another person is asking, and this goes to everyone, for you as practitioners, does your work feel like it has a connection with wider questions of social justice? Does your work feel like it has a connection with wider questions of social justice? If so, how does the circus lend itself or resist social justice work more broadly? That's a deep one. Maybe I'm going to do only 3 questions because you need time to kind of like digest these questions. Someone else is asking, Haley brought up class, and this person is curious, how do the panelists see class and access to capital impacting who has power in the circus? How do the panelists see class and access to capital impacting who has power in the circus? I think I'm going to stop there for now and let the panelists respond, and then I'll come to the next batch of questions. Veronica, you want to start? You're mute.
What was the first question? Okay.
The first question, let me go back to it, which I think was for Larby in particular. How do you use your art form to bring attention to your anti-racist mission? How do you use your art form to bring attention to your anti-racist mission? Larby, do you want to start with that?
Yeah.
And then I'll repeat the other questions as well.
Sure, and I'd like to encourage Veronica or anyone else on the call who has an answer for that. I really would love to hear it. I think for me, and in particular in terms of the work that I do professionally outside of the circus, but I think it extends everywhere. It's just a truth of the societies that we live in, is disrupting the spaces. So circus is very much focused on whiteness, at least in its iteration right now, in terms of the performing aspect, the bodies that are accepted, that are wanted, that are privileged within this field. And so for me, being here and taking up space within circus, within aerial, is super important and central to my anti-racist mission. And in particular as well, I think I do it a lot for the Black community, for Black children who don't get to see examples of themselves represented in many, many places. And so part of my practice in my everyday life is about doing small things or big things, whatever that looks like, to resist the way that society is today. So whether that means wearing my hair naturally, and if that means I don't get a job, then, you know, fortunately at this point in my life, I'm able to make that sacrifice, but also recognizing that, you know, that if white society won't have me, then I don't want them either. And so it's really trying to figure out, I think for me, how to create spaces for Black people, for Black liberation that doesn't depend on white spaces. And so I think it's really brave and really inspiring, really, that Nataio decided to leave this world, because he's opted out. He said, you know what, like all of this is causing me is you know a deterioration in my sense of self, in my sense of belonging in terms of who I am within my body, and really I don't need this to thrive as a human being. And the more we can disrupt narratives that surround whiteness, narratives around capitalism, narratives around that really do support white supremacy, then we're moving in a direction of anti-racism. Then we're moving in a direction of Black liberation.
Thank you very much. Did someone else want to say something in response to that question before we go on to the next one? If not, another question was, does your work feel like it? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, in my working, I'm trying to use in the circus to to ¿cómo se dice? To help the people to see the problems from the real world. I try to say to the people that's not fiction, and I think that's really important for me in my work now. I'm collaborate with anti-racist groups here in Spain because we have a huge problem here with the white supremacists and the police and the borders. Definitely, we have a lot of problems with the borders and with the illegal people. I was before illegal here in this country, so I really know what happens there. And for example, um, I'm collaborate with, well, not collaborate, as in Instagram is strange, wonderful creature. They do a book about my acting, and I say to them to using all this money go directly to the immigrants here in Spain to help them to lawyer to find the lawyers and to other things because the winter is here. To these people have a house because the people don't rent a house here to the black people. This is a crazy thing here in Spain, and we working without the documentation, so maybe the boss can't pay you. So I call this slavery, but yeah. So yeah, that's what I try to do with my job. I go a couple of weeks ago to Romania and I speak about the problem in Spain. I do Got Talent Romania, so I speak about the races in Spain, in Europe, and everyone say like, "Oh, this is here. Oh my God, I think it's just problem from North America." Say no, that's really exist here, and yeah, that's what I do with my acts and shows to try to change my.
Thank you very much for that, Marco. I'm actually going to skip to the third question that I asked earlier, and because apparently Haley has to leave us soon, and the person said Haley brought up class and Russ, and the questioner is curious how how Haley and the others see class and access to capital impacting who has power in Circus. I don't know if you wanted to say something about that, Haley, before you leave, since I know you have to leave soon.
Yeah, I really wish I could stay for all of this beautiful conversation, but I would like to, yeah, shine light more on what Larby was saying. I love your message, Larby, and the fact that when a project or a piece is moving in the direction of anti-capitalism, for example, that's when we're going in a direction of anti-racism, and especially over the conversations that have definitely increased in frequency over the past year regarding anti-racism and anti-Black racism specifically. I think it's so valuable that we remember how much of the race war is actually a class war, and when we are given a space, and I mean, Circus has a history of coming from the less privileged, right? Before it became an elite art form, it was a chance for us as less privileged people, I guess, as a broad term, to express ourselves and to have a creative outlet and to wear what we want and say what we want. And it's, yeah, something that I'm, again, so grateful has been funded in my community, at least, so that people like myself can have access to Circus that might not have access to it otherwise. So I'm, yeah, really, my heart shines for all of you guys. Thank you so much for including me in this conversation, and shine on, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Haley. It was an honor and a privilege to have you participating in this panel. And we're sorry that you might have to leave early. Veronica would like to say something. So go ahead, Veronica.
Yeah. To speak to that question, it's really interesting. It's in order to the pathway to circus takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication. Training is very bitter. It's not. It takes hours and hours and hours and hours, especially if you want to present and act with originality. It's not just like if you want to reach a certain level in circus, if you want to end up at Cirque du Mans or Monte Carlo presenting your work in one of those big festivals, it actually it's preparation meets luck, preparation meets chance, and a lot of that preparation is years of dedication. So what I'm trying to say is that especially here in North America, circus would start way younger, the same as ballet. You would go to a pre-professional program in middle school and high school. And then you would, after that pre-professional program, ideally you would have a certain amount of skills, your basics, all of your basic skills. So like if you did trapeze, you would have your heel hang, your toe hang, your neck hang, all of your plunges, and you would be able to put together some sort of like baseline act with the help of your coach. And then you would have to have a certain amount of skills or a certain level of flexibility, like all three of your splits, bridges, things like that. And then be able to do like a flip flag or a certain amount of pull-ups. With those skills, then you would, if your parents is cool with this, then you would audition for a 3-year institution. So we're talking about ENC in Montreal, the national school, all of the national schools in Europe. And then you're paying for 3 years of school there. So all of this training, your parents have to support you, and they have to believe in you, and they have to, most importantly, either figure out a way to get you that training for free or low cost, or they have to make financial sacrifices for you to have that training. So this is really the system of circus. And in order to really participate in that system, you need money. So there's not a lot of and it's just very cut and dry. It's the same as gymnastics. It's the same as ballet. Anything, you have to fork over all this money. There are social circuses and things and opportunities where you can get training for free or low cost. But if you want to get into these elite schools, you need a certain amount of skill, and to get that skill, that certain level of skill, you need money. You need to pay for the private lessons. You need to pay for the group, or if you're in a youth circus or things like that. The youth circus programs cost about $5,000 a year. If you want to go travel during the summer with Smirkish, you not only have to audition to get in, but you actually have to pay for that experience. And so when we're talking about a class and a capital, it automatically cuts out a whole demographic of people who cannot afford that kind of training. Now, can you make it to those schools without that kind of training? Maybe you might, if you focus on, or you can bypass those higher institution levels, the 3-year college levels, and you can go straight into you can go straight into Cirque or whatever, and you can go straight to Europe, and you have a different you have a good act. I'm sorry, I'm getting beside myself. If you have a good act and you have good lines and good technique and all of that kind of stuff, you can bypass the 3-year system and go to Europe or audition for Cirque and get in and have them train you to do whatever they want. But the actual structure here, especially here in North America, it does involve a lot of money. So it does, like, this is something that is really, we don't have enough programs that offer grants or scholarships to people that cannot usually afford this type of training. So this is actually a really big issue as well. So I just wanted to speak to that.
Thank you for reminding us that this, acquisition of this skills and the opportunity to perform in certain spaces doesn't just happen because you happen to be talented. You literally have to pay your way in. Marco, you wanted to say something before I go on to the next question.
Yeah, it's like just say what Veronica says is the totally truth. So the circus industry is a huge circle of money, lucky, and be the aesthetic of the judges like it. Because for example, I'm doing the Sig de Dema, the 38, the 38, and when I'm arriving over there, my Latin friends say, "Look, Marco, you don't win anything. Don't worry about that. Just doing your job well." Because we know how they working. I just trained 2 years without any money, any help of anyone, any school, because I try to find schools here in Europe. But it's like Veronica said, you need to pay a lot of money. You need to have documentations, because remember, I'm Latin, illegal in Europe, and that's definitely impossible to do. And yeah, definitely. When you arrive in a festival, the judges start to speak about technique. But when they speak about technique, they would like to say aesthetic, because we judge art. We don't judge. That's not a sport for me. No, obviously, you need to be fit or whatever. You need to be strong to do what you need to do. I don't think we need a six pack to do I don't know, some tricks, but you need to be strong to do some tricks. That's the difference for me about art and and, and sport. And circles, yeah, they have this kind of old idea about aesthetic. Obviously, all the aesthetic in the circles is around of white arts or white sports like gymnastic, ballet, and whatever. And when you try to innovate or do something different or something from your culture, like I try to do, they say no, 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 you do wrong. You do no. That's your lines or your techniques not really well. So you need to change this, and this, and they try to change you to you go in this big circle of this infinite circle. Money to go to a festival, to get a job, and you spend more money to learn more things from the white culture to go to all the festival, and it's infinite. So it's a huge problem. We need to change this idea about circles, because this is art, and you can't compare El Bosco with Miro, for example, or I don't know, or or, or Beethoven with Miles Davis. For me, it's a completely different word, and yeah, that's what I try to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are actually other questions later on about aesthetics. I see that Nataio wants to say something and Larby wants to say something. So we're here for the panelists. So I'm going to first go to Nataio and then I'll go to Larby.
So I also feel that those in power, once they have that title, director, talent scout, caster, I feel that if you show them something that's different and they don't like it, they find a reason not to bring it in. For example, I sent my application for INPIST in Montreal, and I paid the $90.81, sent all the forms, did all the things, and they rejected my application. And they told me the committee feels that you are more of a dancer than circus artist. And that really got to me, because where's that support? Regardless if my strength is more of, if you see the more artistic side of me than circus, it doesn't matter. Like I'm in this art, and we're in Montreal, the city that's known for circus and doing so much different things. And this is where Cirque du Soleil evolved and they pushed the limits, you know? And I actually ended up having a 2.5-hour conversation with the director, voicing my views on, you know, this rejection. And at the end, she just tells me, you know, I see you more of a creator than performer. And I'm thinking, wow, like, what was the point of this conversation? Like, you slap a label on me and you put me in a box, and that box is labeled, we don't want that. You know, I'm an artist. Where's that support? Is it just because you have that label like talent scout? You know, it really shouldn't be that way. And another example, I had a profile for the Cirque du Soleil casting, and I noticed when I was submitting, trying to put my portfolio together and put in my videos, that it wouldn't show me like the image of the video that I'm uploading. So I'm like thinking, okay, this isn't right. I should see what I'm putting in my portfolio. So I'm not going to mention names. I'll just say I reached out to a certain caster for Cirque, and I was very nice, polite, said, hey, listen, I sent a screenshot of what I'm seeing, and I'm like, I'm not seeing my videos upload on my profile. Can you help me? What's going on? And they just said, oh, well, we can't, I'm just seeing videos from 2009, and that's the first video that, all those videos from that year is the first videos we see on your profile, and that's all we take into consideration. I don't have the power to delete those videos. And then he ended it with, do you know what a headshot is? Because my profile picture is me in a tutu trying to be different because, hey, it's Cirque du Soleil. I don't want to be, that's not going to get me work. Okay, let me do something different. Obviously, I'm trying to stand out, you know? So it's that mentality that it's like, wow, what is really going on here? You know, like, don't talk to me like I'm stupid. I know what a headshot is, but I choose not to because I know the company does the extreme and the mostest things, you know? So I feel just that title brings so much of that power that it's like, well, I'm not gonna help you because you're not following our rules. These are our guidelines. And that's, guys, it's not okay because we are beautiful. We are just as strong. We can do the work. Why don't you help us? Everyone else is getting it. Why can't we be with everyone else? You know? And yeah, that's what I have to say on that. And this, I'm actually so glad to be part of this talk because it's so important. And I'm actually hearing everyone's stories. It's actually making me emotional because I'm like, yeah, we all want these things. We all deserve it. But why is no one helping us get there? You know? And it's also, one last thing, it's also interesting because the moment I decided to move on is when I saw the success. So I work full time at a hair salon, a Black hair salon, and there's 2 days that we have off, we're closed, and those 2 days I work on my own business, and I offer mobile dreadlock services. So I go to clients' houses, I do their hairs, and this business of my own, it's only 8 months old, and I'm already seeing so much success than when I was trying to apply and be taken serious as an artist. You know, isn't that, excuse my language, that's effed up. Honestly, like, I feel great. I don't have to fake the funk. I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to say, hey, this is my resume. I did this. Like, take me, you know, like I just come in and people see my work online and they know I'm good and they trust me. And it feels great. It feels great. And I'm just so happy now because I don't need to play these games, you know? And I love the arts, but I love it from afar. And I will always support us, like Black bodies in the arts, totally. I will always support, but the other side of me is so much of the arts has let me down that I can't, you know, I don't see it the same way. I don't love it anymore. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Nataio. Again, very powerful testimony. Lavi, you wanted to say something before I go to the other questions?
I didn't have anything to say. I was just snapping to what Marco was saying. I think I just want to kind of continue on from what Nataio was saying around this idea of like, you know, I think that's what that really is a representation of the trauma that we go through throughout life in terms of trying to make it, and I put that in quotations because again, it has a very particular meaning, make it in white society. And so in most spaces, what you were talking about sounded like code switching to me, which people talk about, you know, being Black and being in corporate America or Canada or whatever, and this idea of trying to be as close to whiteness as possible, but like in a different body. And the gag is that we will never be white. And so we're starting at this place where we're put at a disadvantage, but that's by design, right? What's really interesting to me, and I've had a few conversations about like artists in other areas, and so we had an artist in residence at the university that I work at right now called Tao Lewis, and she's a self-taught artist, and she talked to me about her experience of going for grants based on her proposed exhibitions, for example. And she talked about the commentary that would come from these all-white panelists or like board of directors, whatever, I don't know who they were, basically the people who were providing the funding, and really expecting to them, their expectation of her art or what would be considered Black art is this like expression of like pain and like trauma, and like there's like only one note that white society believes that they can see is this is what it means to be Black, or this is what we accept rather, what it means to be Black, and really resting on this idea of like either being animalistic in some places in terms of theater and circus, and so and also in terms of this idea of like slavery and like, you know, chains and just like this pure trauma and hurt, and I think that that's really important to recognize, and one of the ways to push against it is to do the exact opposite that is expected of us, and to resist against this idea of like feeling that we need to code switch in order to fit in or to be accepted rather. And I think again, you know, going back into this idea of like trying to create our own, and it sounds amazing that you've had the opportunity, or you found the opportunity to create something for yourself that really gives you joy, and is an expression of your art. And I think that that's the direction we should be heading in.
Thank you very much, Lavi. I'm actually going to read out several questions because we have about, I think like 20 minutes or so, give or take, left. And I like the panelists to hear the other questions. I don't know that we'll get to all of them. Let me read out some of the questions that have not been read aloud yet. Somebody's asking, is there a difference between inclusion and being respected for your art form? A difference between inclusion and being respected for your art form. So that's one question. The same person is asking, what advice would you give to younger circus artists and enthusiasts who want to pursue a professional career? Given these challenges, what advice would you give to younger artists and enthusiasts who want to pursue a career in circus? Another person is asking, would the panelists share with us what is what a circus aesthetic is in their own personal experience, or what kind of aesthetics they have found, or they have struggled with, or they are looking for. So I think broadly that question is, what are your thoughts on aesthetics, circus aesthetics? And that person was piggybacking off something that Marco had said earlier. Question is there a professional way to address racism with people who are above you, like creative directors, managers, or casting directors? I think some of our panelists have responded in different ways to this question of how do you address racism from those who have power over you, those who are gatekeepers. How do you address their racism? And you're auditioning, you're trying to get in. The person was asking, what is the importance of showing versatility in the Black body? And the final question, with all the risks associated with changing the Black narrative, why is it important to find a way to tell your own story? With all the risks associated with changing the Black narrative, why is it important to find a way to tell your own story? I'll go back to the one of the questions I asked earlier, and just so that you keep it at the back of your mind. And I'm going to allow people to speak as they feel led. Does your work feel like it has a connection to the wider questions of social justice? And if so, how does the circus lend itself to or resist social justice work more broadly? And I'm going to toss in one question, and you all have like 5 minutes or so to try and respond each to as many of you know, initially the title of this panel was going to be representations of Blackness in circus. And a number of you were not comfortable with that. And that's why we changed it to cultivating inclusivity in circus. And I wonder if you wanted to share some thoughts about why you were not very comfortable with that title, representations of Blackness in circus, considering that all of you, or most of you, have spoken about experiences regarding your Blackness as performers, and some of those experiences, most of those experiences actually have not been terribly pleasant. So that's a lot to throw in there, and everybody's going to get 5 minutes each to address whichever ones they want to address, and then we'll be bringing the show to a close. And I'm not going to start with Lavi as I've done. I'm going to kind of reverse order this time. I'm going to start with Veronica.
Okay, all right. A couple different things. I want to try to keep it short to give everyone an opportunity to speak. One of the original titles was like doing circus while Black. These as I wrote in my response, and it's a theme as well during this conversation. The reason why we're even having this discussion right now is because of our skin color. And while we are allowed to be in these spaces because companies want a diverse cast, or they want to raise money, or they want to look good for in terms of like funding and stuff like that, diversity does not always involve or include inclusion. Because you can have someone like Marco in your show for diversity, but if you're throwing some feathers at him and you're saying, hey, you're from Brazil, right? You're a Black man. Can you put these feathers on and dance the samba for me? Because that is what I want to see. That is not being inclusive of Marco's identity as a person, identity as a performer, his artistic expression of himself and how he sees himself. That is not inclusive of who Marco is. And then you can have other performers come out and for example, have an aerial hoop act or aerial silk act about how they feel strange, or how they feel weird, or how they feel the darkness inside of them rising up. Or you can have a piece about a girl that feels super heartbroken, or why did you leave me, with complete breaking of the traditional lines and aesthetics with flex feet and things like that, and fully have this person come in and express themselves. But then you turn to the person of color and say, hey, hey, Asian man, can you put on this karate outfit? Or hey, Black woman, can you put on this bikini and just kind of like roll your hips a little? Yeah, I know you auditioned with this video, but can you actually do this? Or I hired you because I needed dark people to put on this cat costume. You can diversify your show all you want to, but that does not include inclusion. Until people start to look at people of color and see them as equals, we're always going to have this issue. And for me, always saying like, I want to have a discussion right now, and I want to talk about my Blackness. Actually, I don't want to just talk about my Blackness. I want to talk about how I create art. What's my creative process? I want to talk about how, like, my 20 years of working in the circus industry. I want to talk about how we can start a program so that kids can have access to circus and a higher standard, a higher level of training, so that they can get into these higher level schools and stuff like that. I want to talk about, you know, how connecting. I want to connect people. I want to talk to Marco about creating a show. Like, how can I get to Spain and like help you with your show? These are the things that I want to discuss. And yes, I am a Black woman in a body on this earth at this space, in this space and time, but that is not my only existence as a soul in a body on this planet. And so moving on to talk about inclusion and respect, again, that being inclusive, you have diversity, you have inclusion, okay? And then you have respect. Respect is bringing someone in and talking to them with the same respect that you would talk to them if they were your mother or your sister or your brother, or if they were your other colleague. Too often, directors and show producers, they get in their positions of power, or their positions of perceived power, and just in general, they sometimes, not all, and I want to be very, very clear, but I just want to paint a picture to everyone listening that there's always this thing of where, okay, I'm sitting on this throne now, and now you guys are peasants. And this can be everybody. This can be all of the artists approaching, wanting a job, or, you know, wanting to be included in a production. And respect is very important. It's something that we kind of owe it to each other. Like, some people say respect is to be earned, and I'm not necessarily from that school or that train of thought. I feel like if I'm talking to you and we're having a conversation, I should automatically give you that respect. And in these spaces, I mean, this is what we're feeling. We walk into these spaces and we are judged simply because of the color of our skin, because of our Blackness. We are already put in a box. It was already brought up, like, because I'm being different, I'm already put in this box that you don't want that. And unfortunately, that happens often. Or if you come in and you walk in, it's already known that, oh, we hired this Black person. Oh, so you are so and so. We're already judged because of our skin color. So I want to try to wrap this up, excuse me. Inclusion and respect go hand in hand. It means that I value what you have to say. I value you as a person. Do you feel uncomfortable putting on these bananas and gyrating your hips? Why do you feel uncomfortable? I completely understand you. What do you feel comfortable with doing? Do you feel uncomfortable being a Black body on the bottom of a 3-high? With 2 people standing on top of you? Do you feel uncomfortable being a Black body at the bottom of a pyramid? Why do you feel uncomfortable? Okay, I completely understand. Let's kind of change that around. So I think that inclusion and respect go hand in hand.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Marco, a couple of words before we sign off.
Okay. Yeah, it's a real complex thing because for me, inclusion, I don't want to be included in this kind of system who, you know what I mean? When the people don't have opportunities and I am the unique black person, be included in this kind of spaces is something really wrong. You know what I mean? We need to change these spaces. So, and the other word is the diversity. So diversity always can be something really dangerous because maybe it can cover uh, some dangerous idea. Like here in Spain, for example, we have a black person in a kind of neo-Nazi party and the politics. So this kind of neo-Nazi parties say no, we are not racist. We are not racist because look, this is a black guy and he think like me. He think we need to kill people in the borders, and he think the immigrants are bullshit. You know what I mean? Sorry for the words, but yeah, and it's a real danger. So diversity and inclusion, I think, is not the word. I think the word in English is equity. It's like when you have the same value and equality with all the races. You know what I mean? And I don't think it is. I'm not real comfortable with the pioneer name before because I don't think this is just a problem from the black people. Obviously, I think it's a problem with the racialized people. But the real problem is the white people vision. But definitely is we have the same problem if you are indigenous, if you are Asian, if you are black. So I think we need to start choosing the equality word. So like be equals is the best thing, not include or in this kind of strange diversities, but equals. I maybe I explained not so well. Sorry for my English, but I try to explain faster.
Thank you very much, Marco. We fully understand you. Nataio, a couple of words before we end.
You
need to unmute. You need to unmute yourself.
Unmute. Okay. So I'm gonna go on to giving a bit of advice for the younger crowd. It's gonna be hard. There's no shortcuts. You're gonna have to put up with a lot of shit. You're gonna have to smile when you don't want to smile. You're gonna have to sit in the makeup chair, and they're not gonna know what to do with their hair, with your hair, because they don't have, you know, Black people to understand how to work with their hair texture. You're gonna have to do all those long additions that are just honestly a waste of time. They don't care. If you do choose to move on and find something different, don't feel that you're giving up. I've tried to explain my story multiple times, and people are constantly, they don't see it. They keep saying, oh, keep going, don't give up, it's hard, you know, you're so amazing. No. It's not, I didn't give up. Society made it hard for me to pursue my passion. I'm moving on. So if it comes to that, don't feel bad, because that power, it's now in your hand. You don't need to chase after anyone else, okay? So that's my advice to the younger crowd. And if anyone wants to talk, I am always here. I will support any type of artist. I send out so much love. If anyone wants to know more about my story or anything, just you can find me online. Always here. And thank you for having me. It's been so great.
Thank you so much, Nataio. That was wonderful. Lavi, a couple of words before we end today.
Yeah, sure. The question that really stuck out to me was the question on, is there a professional way to address racism with people who are above you? My short answer to that is no. If you're going to be if you're going to be going against the norm, what it's sort of expected that Black people are supposed to be able to just deal with racism because they've had to deal with it, for centuries. Um, any sort of way of dealing with it or responding to it is always seen as a negative. That being said, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. But what it does mean is that you have to weigh what you gain out of it, but also what consequences are going to come from that. And as hopefully people delve more into understanding what anti-racism is, what Black liberation is, hopefully the more comfortable one would feel. I certainly know that that's been my experience. From being an undergraduate in university and feeling like I didn't have a language, to where I am now, where I feel very comfortable asserting myself and saying, essentially saying what's going on, and being able to bring that to the attention of those around me. In terms of the question around diversity and inclusion, I think that the focus really has to be inclusion. If we're going to use that terminology, I would really use anti-racism, anti-oppression, and talk about what exactly what we're going to be battling and what we're facing. And since I guess a few months ago, I've been doing a little bit more reading and understanding of what's going on in the world, how the world's structured. I would even push that even further and talk about Black liberation. I didn't get a chance to give my input in terms of what the panel would be, what we would be called, but honestly, I didn't necessarily have any issues with the title focusing on Blackness, because I think, again, it's a way to counter what we are conditioned to support, or to have interest in, or to understand. And what I'm referring to is often when Blackness is brought up or talked about or specifically addressed, there's a lot of uproar, usually negative uproar, about saying, oh, but we're leaving people out of the conversation. And it's really about this fact that whiteness has no way in. Whiteness is opposed to this Blackness, to the centering of Blackness. And I think that the way forward really, again, as I said, is using that as the resistance, and really understanding the way that society is structured, to create these very specific experiences that we do have, and also to hello, can you still hear me? Hello? Oh, yeah, okay. Also to I forgot what I was saying now. Also to create spaces for Black people where, again, we can opt out of where we're put in a particular box, because once we've created boxes, or not necessarily boxes, space outside of that, then we don't necessarily have to keep worrying about what they're doing over there. And I think someone in the comments had put a question saying, how do performers like Circus Harmony alumni become the norms and not the exceptions? How can more opportunity be created? Let's create it ourselves. Let's do it. We have that power to do it. It may not be at the, in terms of as big or as mainstream, but that's okay. I think that if we invest in us, we'll eventually get to the point where we're able to have all that we want and more.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Lavi. Thank you so much for sharing all the responses that all the panelists have given. And one thing that stands out for me is You've all spoken about this, what I'm going to call a performative diversity that institutions engage in. And if, you know, I just say one thing, that it's not just the circus. The performative diversity exists everywhere, everywhere. In the performance world and outside of the professional performance world, we have this performative diversity. And it does not signify, as many of you have pointed out, it does not signify equity, equality, or inclusivity. It does not. It's just performative. It's just something on the surface. Let me at this point thank Marco, Nataio, Veronica, and Lavi for sharing from the heart. We really, really appreciate it. This has been a wonderful, heartfelt, frank, and honest conversation. I think everyone who's participated has really enjoyed being here, listening to all of you. I'm going to hand over now to Ante, who had the initiative to pull all of this together. So thank you, Ante, and you get the closing words.
Oh, yeah, what to say, thank you all so much for being here and for putting forward your very thought-provoking insights and sharing your multifaceted experiences. And so often the time is short, but I still think that all of us have, we learned so much from your insights, and we have a lot to ruminate about, especially in terms of ongoing racial injustice in circus and our circus community. And I think what came about to the conversation is also how circus, or how the Black body, the body of color, is still simultaneously like a invisibilized and hypervisibilized, but at the same time it also, as Larby and Haley and all of you say, is also a place for empowerment, and that we also really have to think how we can use circus as a tool for empowerment, and how to how to think beyond racial injustice, but also how simultaneously address that, but also simultaneously put something new forward, right? Which it talks about a circus futurity, which is a circus which allows us maybe, hopefully, to think beyond white circus aesthetics, but to think of new aesthetics, new emergences. And I think you're all doing this kind of important work. And I really thank you from all of my heart for being part of the conversation and being here. What I also want to mention before now is that this is again the first panel, and we will meet Circus and others. We'll have another panel in January. It will be facilitated by Olga Lucia Sozano, and will be about the COVID-19 pandemic and how it has impacted our community. More information will circulate shortly, so I hope that all of you attendees and will be participate at this event as well. Okay, what else to say than really, again, a big thank you, and let's hope that we build all a circus which is worth running away with. Thank you.